and gentlemen, welcome to the Walkshow podcast. This is your host, Walker Neer. Thank you so much for tuning in. On today's episode, I give some thanks to listeners and talk a little bit about some changes to the show. Also, talk about a recent concert I went and saw by an artist named Jose Gonzales, who is absolutely incredible. The new Tool album, Fear Inoculum, that just dropped. And then I also share some freestyle raps that I found that I've just been completely mesmerized by recently. And then finally delve into Vlad TV, which is a very popular YouTube channel, and kind of explore the Tupac murder a little bit. Today's show, the music is by Misha Zarins. Again, thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. Hey, what's up, guys? I just really wanted to take an opportunity to say thank you so much to everyone who has listened to the Walkshow. I've got pretty consistent listener numbers. It's a pretty small amount of people, but that's all good. I feel like that it's just a matter of time to get the show some more range as far as getting it out there to people. But the people who do listen, I really, this has been a really awesome thing for me to do. It's been really rewarding for me personally. And, certainly that's helped by the fact that I have an audience that is interested in listening. And I can't thank you enough. There's some listeners that I know very well personally and that actually reach out to me and give me feedback on a somewhat regular basis. And some listeners that I don't know. And the reason I say I don't know is because I can see where people listen from, and at the very least, I don't recognize some of the city-state combinations that I'm seeing, and being able to place who it might be that's listening from a particular location. Either way, like I said, it really just it means a lot to me. Many of you know, and I've talked about on other podcast episodes before, but I used to do stand-up comedy, and doing the podcast has been kind of a way back into that kind of arena, if you will, not into doing stand-up specifically. And certainly doing this podcast is actually very different than doing stand-up, other than I'm talking into a microphone, assuming, for an audience. But it's been, like I said, for me, a creative outlet that I was kind of missing, and I didn't realize how much I was missing it. And so, again, just thank you so much for listening. And another person that I really want to thank, very specifically in this is Misha Zarins, who's been doing the production and the music for the Walkshow since inception. Misha has a ton of stuff going on in his life. He's, like we've talked about, he's a lifelong musician, which all of us benefit from. He also is basically a rocket scientist. He will say he's not actually a rocket scientist, but whatever. He's got a very demanding professional life as well. And it just wasn't working out anymore as far as timing, for him to continue doing the production. So I am actually taking over the production responsibilities for the Walkshow. However, we still get to use Misha's music, and so that'll still be featured in the show. So really, as far as, from a listener experience, I don't think you'll hear anything real different, other than maybe the audio quality won't be quite as good as it was when we had a professional doing it. But Misha really, I called him up and asked him what microphone I should get. And he really just kind of embraced the whole idea and ran with it. And if it weren't for him, I absolutely would not have done the podcasts. I don't think, because I would have been too afraid of the unknown. There's too much stuff going on, and I would have felt like I, wouldn't have been able to get my arms around it. But because I was able to work with Misha for the last, almost year, 9 months, whatever it's been, I didn't have to worry about a lot of that. I just had to worry about trying to get stuff recorded, and then he kind of really ran with the production side of it. And now it's allowed me to have time to get comfortable with doing some of this stuff and producing the episodes. So, again, I just, from the very bottom of my heart, thank you so much, Misha, for all of the help that you've given me. And thank you for continuing to be a part of the show going forward. I hope that we have Misha back featured as a guest, honestly, as often as he wants. He's clearly one of my closest friends, so I think he's a very interesting person. So I'm interested in talking to him pretty often. But yeah, there's just, there, and to be clear, like I said, the folks out there that are listening, and especially the ones that give me feedback, it really makes me tick. So I really, really appreciate it. Another thing I want to talk about is I have actually just launched a new podcast called Pick Up Your Sticks with Brett Lindley. Brett has been a guest featured on the Walkshow for a few different episodes. I think maybe 3 different episodes he's been on, and I think 2 of them were about video games. So it actually just kind of made a lot of sense for he and I to collaborate on a gaming podcast, which is what Pick Up Your Sticks is. It is a podcast about why gaming matters. And we launched just a couple of weeks ago. We've got, I think, 3 episodes out now. It comes out on Sundays, just like the Walkshow. So for those of you who enjoy the video game coverage or who want to dive into that stuff more, please check out Pick Up Your Sticks. It's on all the streaming platforms. It's on YouTube. We've got a website. We've got Facebook, Twitter, the whole thing. So by all means, check out Pick Up Your Sticks if you're wanting gaming. And if you're one of the many Walkshow listeners that does not want to listen about video games because it's just not where you're at, then rejoice. It's very unlikely that you'll hear much about video games on the Walkshow. I mean, I can't say I'll never bring it up or it'll never come up, but I don't think there will be any more episodes that are dedicated to that. As is evident, gaming is a pretty significant hobby of mine and something I'm pretty passionate about. And it's really easy for me to deep dive into it or nerd out, as we call it, and just going on and on and on about gaming and different games and specifics and all that. But it doesn't really match the rest of the content of the Walkshow, and I think everything else is a lot more accessible by anyone. And so, yeah, it just made a lot of sense to kind of branch off and do a separate show dedicated just for gaming, so that way the Walkshow can be more about all of life, and I don't get caught up and get on these tracks where I just want to talk about, a game for an hour. So yeah, Pick Up Your Sticks podcast. Super excited about that. If you're interested in gaming, go check it out. If you're not interested in gaming, but just love to hear my voice, then I guess that would be a thing for you there. But it is all about gaming, so there won't be me doing a book review or or having interesting guests that talk about their puppet show or whatever the case may be. That stuff will be here on the Walkshow. So recently I went to St. Louis for a Jose Gonzales concert. It was just a Friday ago. Jose Gonzales is an acoustic singer-songwriter that is one of my favorite musical acts of all time. I mean, if you look at my playlist histories, Tool is at the very top of that, of course. And then Jose is actually just right there with it. When I used to listen to all my music in iTunes, it would track a play count, and the top 50 songs or something that I listened to in iTunes were either exclusively Tool or Jose, and that was it. Jose, I believe it's like a Spanish style guitar that he plays. It's a lot of finger picking and really intricate stuff, and it's crazy because he can play a more, and this is me being ignorant to how how to talk about music actually, but he will play a more of a higher pitched melody while simultaneously also playing a lower pitched one, all on the same guitar. And maybe that's happening all the time. And again, I'm not sophisticated when it comes to actually understanding how it all works, but just really cool. Just like a really, really, really cool sound, and a really beautiful sound. And yeah, I mean, it was a bucket list concert for me. If you haven't checked out Jose, you might have heard him before. There's a movie called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty with Ben Stiller, which I highly recommend, by the way. The Secret Life of Walter Mitty is one of my favorite movies that I've ever seen. Actually, it is through and through an excellent movie. It's kind of about a guy who never really takes any risks, never really has any adventure in his life, and then just kind of decides to go for it in this particular circumstance, and then has this pretty grand adventure. And there's this scene where a character is longboarding, which is like a really large skateboard, kind of a really long skateboard, hence longboard. I mean, he's longboarding down this mountain in Iceland, and I mean on a paved road, but he's got to get somewhere, and he doesn't have any quick way, and he used to be a skateboarder or something, so he feels confident he can do the longboard, and so he just takes off. And I don't know if you've ever seen Iceland, but it is actually one of the most gorgeous locations on Earth, and Jose Gonzales is the soundtrack to this scene. So it's just this really cool scene where it's this really, in the movie, it's an empowering moment for the character, and just visually, it's very striking because Iceland is that. And then the music to it is just, oh man. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now thinking about it. It's so good. And then you've got the video game, which, hey, I know I said no more gaming talk, but it's relevant. The video game Red Dead Redemption that was for Xbox 360 and PS3, that actually features a Jose Gonzales song that is also just perfectly placed in the game. But yeah, Jose Gonzales, amazing. He has his own original songs, which are great, and then he also does covers of songs that are just really, really good. Like there's this song called Heartbeats that he does that's a cover, and it's probably one of his most famous songs, but it's actually a cover. I think it's like Knife or something is the name of the original artist. I could look it up, but I'm lazy. My favorite cover that he does is actually a song called Teardrop. If you are a fan of Massive Attack at all, which is like a trip hop electronic music group, Massive Attack, one of their most famous songs is Teardrop, and Jose Gonzales covers it, and his cover is just incredible. And it's so cool because, and if you're not familiar with either of these artists, this might sound kind of bizarre, but Massive Attack again is electronic music, so it's not techno unta necessarily type stuff, but it's yeah, it's not an acoustic guitar, right? It's not an acoustic guitar and one vocalist. There's a lot of production to it, I guess you could say. There's a lot of effects, and there's just a lot going on in the Massive Attack song. And it's a beautiful song, Teardrop by Massive Attack. It is amazing, and the vocals in it are great. And so then to hear someone cover it just as a solo act with an acoustic guitar and himself, doing the vocals, I just didn't even know that was possible. I had never even fathomed someone trying to do that. I mean, certainly you hear covers of popular songs, but often they're like popular country or popular rock songs or just older pop type songs. But it's not something that's just an entirely separate genre of music in that way, right? Like something that's not created. Like, I don't know that Massive Attack, I don't know, but I as far as I'm aware, I don't know how they would create that live, right? Like, there's a lot of electronic stuff going on, and for Jose to do it and just on a guitar, it's just great. Anyway, Jose Gonzales, please check him out if you have not. It is amazing music. Everyone, I don't know a single person that doesn't like it. That's not true. I know one guy that doesn't like it, but that guy doesn't like anything. And if he listens to this, he'll know who he is. So it's all good. I've seen Tool live. I've seen A Perfect Circle. I've seen Pussifer live. So those are the three Maynard bands, right? I've seen them all live. So they're off the list. Not that I wouldn't see them all again. I would love to, but I've at least done it. I've seen Dave Chappelle live, and now Jose Gonzales. I mean, not that I don't ever want to see a show again, or that I'm not going to continue going to see live performances, but I don't know if there's anyone that I'll be more excited to see than those groups. At least not that I'm aware of currently, but hey, things could change. So what was super cool about the day I went to see the Jose concert was it actually happened to land on the same day that the new Tool album came out. And the new Tool album is Fear Inoculum. It's been 13 years since Tool had an album. If you're not aware of Tool or what I think about it, then I invite you to go back and to the Walkshow catalog and find the episode where Misha and my friend Crabtree and myself, the three of us, all just completely explain our position on Tool and what it means to us and really deep dive into it. But yeah, 10,000 Days was the last album, and I had kind of resigned myself to not thinking there was another album that was going to come out because it's been 13 years. I mean, they were they were a band for like 15 years and came out with 5 albums or whatever it was, and then there was another 13 years where they didn't come out with an album. So it was almost as long of a span of time that since they had been a band in total between the last 2 albums. So I think it was a fair sentiment to not believe it. And there was just stuff, it felt like every year it was, new Tool album this year, and it just never happened. So I got tired of having expectations and trying to be excited about it. And so I just kind of let it go. But it's amazing. They have continued their trend of not creating a bad song. And that's almost not fair, because it's not just that none of them are bad. They're all great. Like, it's all excellent. It's really, really good. The songs are really long. There's basically 7 tracks, and one of those is just a drum solo thing, which is insane, to be clear. I don't diminish it at all. But it's just like a 3-minute drum solo kind of thing that, again, super cool. But the other tracks are all at least 10 minutes long, and they're just really, really complicated. They're just really complex. It's going to take a long time to unpack it, and especially for someone like me who doesn't even fully understand what I'm listening to, right? Like, I can't sit and be like, oh, that was a cool bass note, or oh, that was a nice chord on the guitar. I don't know specifically what I'm hearing all of the time. I just know that I love the sound of it, and that's that's how I've always judged music. I like music based on how it sounds and a feeling that I get from listening to it, more so than looking up the words and only being concerned about that. Now, to be fair, though, that's just my most ideal version of listening to music, I guess. And I don't even know if that's fair to say ideal, but I do love me some what I call prep school pop rap, but modern rap that's not, it's not Tupac or something. It's not on that level, but it's funny. It's got silly lines. In fact, I'll talk about some of that here in just a minute. But anyway, so my whole point in going into that tangent and all that is just simply to say that I'm not saying that the way I listen to music is the best way or the only way or whatever. I'm not trying to get into that place with it. Either way, the new Tool album is tremendous. It's actually just hard for me to describe all of the things about it that are so great in a succinct way. It doesn't sound like the other albums at all, yet it still sounds like Tool, which is what they've done with every album they've ever put out. Maintained a consistency to their style, while at the same time breaking apart pretty heavily from what they've done before. Their first album, Opiate, has 6 tracks, and really 5 are actually just songs. The 6th one is Opiate, which is a song, but it's also got some other stuff to that track. But those songs are all like under 5 minutes. I mean, they're all pretty short tracks. And on the way back from the Jose concert, we were listening to the new Tool album. And so we listened to Fear Inoculum, the whole new thing. And then as soon as it was done, I put on Opiate to kind of see what it was like to see, where they are now, and then immediately go back and jump back to where they began. And it turns out Opiate's still great. So it's it's still an awesome album also. But it's wild. It's wild to hear how much change there has been. And now, in fairness, the band is actually different. The bass player is a different person, literally, than in now than it was in Opiate. But yeah, it's excellent. And I will admit that I feel, I don't know if guilty is the right word or what, but I recognize that I am through and through. I'm a Tool fanboy. Like I'm sold, you know what I mean? Like, and so I've seen a lot of reviews or people sharing their thoughts. And again, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. So I don't, I get that, but to be perfectly honest, and I know that this isn't right, when I hear someone that has a bad Tool opinion, I just don't actually care. And it's not because I think that they're an idiot or something, or that their taste is horrible or something. It's more like I just don't think they understand, which I get is totally pretentious and condescending and not not true. I mean, they understand whatever they need to understand. Liking Tool at a certain level is not a requisite for having a good life or something, and I get that, or being a good person or anything. But yeah, the way I tried to explain it to another friend was that it would be like if, like, let's say, and I'm not, but let's say I was like an astronomer, right? So I've got a telescope and I want to look out at the stars, and I'm looking up and it's like, hey, you can see Jupiter, which I don't know anything about it. So this is just a made up example. But let's say it's like, hey, you can see Jupiter. And it's like, hey, like I'm into this. So when I look through the telescope and I see the Jupiter, it's like, it's mind blowing, right? Well, then maybe you take someone who is really like me, that doesn't, the real version of me in this example, that doesn't know anything about it. And they look through it and they see the telescope and they go, oh yeah, that's cool. Or yeah, that's all right. But it's not moving to them. Well, does that mean that the thing that you're looking at isn't actually super majestic and beautiful and just mind bending? And no, it doesn't mean that. It means that they're just not that into it, and so they just don't understand it that same way. They can't see it that same way. And that's just how I feel about people that that are not thrilled with a new Tool album. I'm not mad at them, and I don't seek to change their opinion. I don't care. It's just not a valid it's just not a valid opinion to me. It's just irrelevant. It's just they're not into it in that same way, and that's cool. They don't have to be. But yeah, I've seen some people that are, I've not seen anyone just come out and say just, like it's terrible or something, but I've seen some people come out and be like, oh, I'm just not that impressed with it, or it's not what I was hoping for, or whatever, whatever that is. And that's all fine. But again, I just don't think it's a viable, position. It's just irrelevant to me. So yeah, so all that being said, I recognize that that's the place I'm coming from, and I recognize that that's who I am in this circumstance, is the ultimate fanboy. So take that for what it's worth. If you're also pretty into Tool, then I'm telling you, you're in luck, because it's tremendous. If you're not, then hey, you may agree with me, you may not, and if you don't, you're welcome to tell me, but I probably won't. I'm not going to debate it with you or something, because I'm just going to assume that you just don't actually know what you're talking about. And hey, that's as clean and honest as I can be about my feelings on that. Anyway, the album is so great, and we're kicking around so many ideas of what we think different things mean. Misha was suggesting that he thinks maybe some of the tracks, or if not all of them, are supposed to almost serve as like companion tracks to some of the older Tool songs. and maybe that's true. We don't really know. Misha and Crabtree, who were featured on that Tool episode that I referenced earlier, they both have dove into it a lot deeper than I have already. They've really gotten into the lyrics and really just listened to it more times than I have. I mean, I think Misha said he listened to it 40 times in the first week that we had access to it. I certainly was not near that count. But for me, it, again, like I was saying earlier, it's the way that I approach music, and especially Tool. When I listened to Tool for the first couple of years, I didn't even know what track names were. I just knew I had albums, and I would just be like, yeah, song 7, which wasn't even right because I didn't have all of the tracks. I only had the songs, but on most of their albums, they have weird little kind of one-off things that they do, and I had no idea what any of the songs were called. Certainly had no idea what the lyrics were, and still loved it. And so that's still where I remain with it. With this new album, obviously sometimes lyrics are obvious, but for me, a lot of times they're not. And I'm just kind of letting it wash over me still. I'm just kind of letting it, just soaking it in, taking it all in. And yeah, it's great. I'm really, really, really digging it. All of the songs change so many times just within themselves. You get a variety of musical styles. You also get a variety of vocal styles just within each song, and certainly from song to song. Something I said was, on the older albums, like let's take Lateralist, for example. All right, well, you can listen to let's say The Grudge, that's the first track, and then you can listen to, let's say, The Patient. Well, they're longer songs. They're not, 7-minute songs or something like that. So it's, it's not that they're short little things, but they're very clearly their own track. And while there's variety within those tracks, and there's variety of, again, in music style and even vocals in those tracks, in Schism, or excuse me, in the Schism also, but in The Patient and The Grudge, they're also more contained. They're also, it's still just what you would expect as one traditional kind of song. The new Tool album, it's like it's multiple songs in each one. So it's almost hard. That's why I say it takes so long for me to unpack, because it's almost harder to even understand it track to track, because instead it's like I'm just trying to understand it like within each track, all the things that are going on. Another solid recommendation is, if possible, listen to it through headphones. They do some really cool stuff with the stereo, and just simply the left and right, and alternating where the noise is coming from, and it's pretty impressive. Fear Inoculum, again, is the name of the album. Highly recommend that you check it out. It's on all the streaming platforms finally. Yeah, if you like Tool, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It is lovely. I also wanted to talk about some silly stuff I've been delving into lately. Very, very popular rapper, which I get that I constantly come on the show. I mean, what was it, just a couple weeks ago or months ago now? I don't know how long, but I came on and talked about the Marvel movie as well. I missed that train by about 10 years, so I get it. I get that these people are already known quantities. Lil Dicky is a rapper who broke onto the scene, as far as I'm aware, with a video called Save That Money. where a song and subsequent music video where he shoots an entire rap video without paying for anything. And when I say shoots an entire rap video, does a lot of the things that are stereotypical to rap videos. So goes and parties at a mansion in like Beverly Hills, and goes and takes super high-end luxury sports cars and is driving them down the road and like rapping and dancing along as the car is driving. Ends up on a yacht and is on like a yacht party thing, and is able to do some of that. And it's cool because in the video he actually shows it shows footage of him kind of negotiating these different things. So like he goes to all these different mansions in like Beverly Hills and asks if he can get, if he can have some time to shoot a video there, just 15 minutes, and no one will say yes. And then finally this woman just goes, right now? And he's like, yeah, just for like 15 minutes. And she goes, yeah, okay. And then that's it. I mean, they sign some stuff and that's it. And then he gets into a nightclub, and he goes to a car dealership and gets access to the cars. The yacht thing, there's actually another rapper named T-Pain who is shooting a video, and T-Pain's actually a pretty well-established artist. And so he has a lot of resources. And so, yeah, he's got this yacht with this whole crowd of people partying on the yacht and models to, be in the video or whatever. And so then Lil Dicky is able to just kind of jump on and piggyback off that and use all that same set effectively for his own song. So pretty cool and pretty entertaining. Little shtick, I guess you could say, for that song. And there's one other track I was familiar with him where he like talks to Snoop Dogg, and Snoop Dogg acknowledges he's a legitimate rapper or something. I don't even really remember it that well. Either way, so I've known who Lil Dicky is for a few years now, but never really been that into him, never really checked out that much. Well, there's this TV show, or radio show, I guess, on it. It's YouTube as well, not really TV, but radio show that's also uploaded to YouTube. That's like Shade 45. That's Sway in the Morning. I think it's on Sirius, the satellite radio. But so Sway is this MC who is like, and when I say MC, I don't mean rapper, I mean literal like master of ceremonies MC. He's awesome. He's a great host. He has an awesome energy. The stuff that he says to kind of hype it all up is just, it's great. It's just super. It looks so much fun to be a part of. I will admit just openly, I am jealous of Sway in the Morning, and wish that I was Sway, or that maybe I don't wish I was Sway. I wish I could do Sway's job. Which, hey, maybe the Walkshow will grow and eventually I can. But anyway, he has rappers come on his show, and he just puts a beat on and has them freestyle. And it's just kind of a test their metal kind of thing, if you will, see if they're really about it. And yeah, he had Lil Dicky on, and Lil Dicky absolutely kills it. I mean, he kills it. Like I was shocked at how good he was. I didn't think it was possible. I didn't think Lil Dicky was going to be that impressive. And again, it's a freestyle, so that adds a lot of credit to it, but it's great. I highly recommend it. I'll put a link in the show notes or whatever, so you can find it, or you can just search on your own Lil Dicky Sway on YouTube. It's one of the better freestyle performances that I've seen. And I actually have sat and watched a lot of the Sway in the Morning freestyle. So I feel somewhat credible in that statement. And yeah, it's great. He is incredibly talented and a lot of fun. And yeah, that freestyle is incredible. Another person who has a pretty great freestyle. Now, compared to Lil Dicky, it's not actually that great, in fairness. But because this guy isn't a professional rapper, Shia LaBeouf actually is on Sway in the Morning, and he drops a freestyle, and it's pretty good. Like I didn't know he had that in him, and it's pretty good. Now, right after that, in the same video, they have another dude who raps, which I don't know if the other guy is freestyling or not, but either way, there is an obvious difference between someone who raps professionally and then, or at least is a very serious hobby of theirs. just because they haven't made it yet doesn't mean they don't make money, doesn't mean they're not good at it. But either way, there's a difference between someone who's there with it versus, Shia LaBeouf, who obviously is an actor and has a lot of other things that he pursues beyond just trying to rap. But man, does he kill it. It is nice. It is a pretty nice, freestyle. So yeah, if you're looking for some entertaining rap, I would totally check out Sway in the Morning, and then look for the Lil Dicky freestyle and the Shia LaBeouf freestyle. They're both pretty top notch. One last thing I wanted to mention, another YouTube channel that I check out quite a bit, and it's actually a very, very popular channel. So yet again, this isn't me, I'm not hipster on any of this stuff. I didn't find it first. I'm not Ray J. It's called Vlad TV, and it's this dude, DJ Vlad, although I don't actually know if he's a DJ or not. I don't really know how that fits in. But he interviews primarily people from the hip hop community. And that takes on a lot of things, and it's not exclusively people from hip hop. It's mostly that, but it's not always. But he has some really, really interesting guests and some really, really interesting interviews. I mean, people talk about some really cool stuff. And it's long form interviews, which, as you know, I personally love. And yeah, it's really cool stuff. He's got this one, it's not really even a series because it's just a giant collection of interviews that are not necessarily, they weren't shot to paint a picture or to create a narrative, but they do so still. So what that is they've got interviews with this dude named Mob James, who used to be in Death Row Records, worked with Suge Knight and Tupac, was around that directly all the time. Was one of the dudes in that crew. He's got interviews with this dude named BG Knockout, who is actually so Suge Knight and Mob James and Tupac, those guys are all affiliated with Bloods. Well, BG Knockout was from the same general geographical area but he was a Crip from his neighborhood. So he didn't actually hang out with those dudes, but he was around the same city in the same era, and they knew of each other, kind of thing, and that kind of stuff, and knew mutual people that become relevant in a moment. So he also has interviews with these two guys who worked the homicide case for Tupac. He's got another guy these two guys worked it back when it happened. Then he's got another guy who's another police officer who worked the murder investigation back in LA. And so through all of these different interviews that he's got, in talking to these people and asking them questions about what they know, they actually just paint a pretty convincing narrative of what exactly occurred with the Tupac killing, which was, to me personally, interesting because, I mean, just within the last few months, there was another guy that came out, and it's some rapper's kid. I don't remember who it was, but made some comment about Tupac being alive in Madagascar. I don't know, some bizarre place, but I don't know. I certainly have never thought, I mean, people say Elvis is, around somewhere also. So it's not so much that I was confused as to whether or not I believed he was actually dead. Certainly I did, but just really never understood what happened. There's always talk about like, oh, it was something to do with the East Coast, West Coast rap rivalry that was going on back then, or it was something that, it was something that was like a hit put out on Tupac that was planned in advance. There's another rapper who insists that I saw on DJ Vlad when talking about the Tupac murder, who insists that it was the CIA. It was a government thing, and that any other narrative is only in service of propping up this conspiracy. You know, I don't know that I think that's accurate either. And so, and the reason I don't think that that's accurate is because, again, all these separate accounts from all these unconnected people, they basically paint a narrative which is not an unknown story, but where basically the night that Tupac gets killed, he was in a fight just, within an hour or two before he gets killed with a dude in the lobby of the casino in Vegas where they were at to watch the Mike Tyson fight. So there's always, I've always heard speculation that it was just that guy that was related to that killed him. Well, the story that they kind of tease out through all these different interviews on the DJ Vlad channel is about how basically there was a dude that ran with the death row crew, right? And that dude goes to a mall in rival gang, Crip gang territory and has an expensive necklace on. The necklace gets stolen. He gets beat up and the necklace gets stolen by these Crips. So a few weeks pass or whatever, however much time, and this fight comes up in Vegas. So they go. Well, Tupac, Suge Knight, all the Bloods from the Death Row crew are at this casino in Vegas. Well, when they're in the lobby, and the guy who got robbed, who got his chain stolen, is also there. Or then they're in the lobby, he points out the guy who beat him up and stole his chain, or at least was the leader of those people that did that. And so that's the altercation that's on the closed circuit TV footage that from the casino that night. The death row guys point, hey, that's the guy that took my chain, and then they fight. There's an altercation, and what comes of it comes of it. So they get up and leave. After a little bit of, they're kicking the guy on the ground, so it's not pleasant. But they eventually leave. Well, the guy who had just been beat up by the death row people is a known gang member who is, has at least a reputation of being a killer. So he's not going to just get beat up and let that go, right? So him and his crew immediately get in cars and go to pursue Tupac and his crew to this club that they're all going to go to some after party after this fight, after the boxing match that they're all attending. And so as the story goes, Tupac is in a car up ahead in traffic, and a fan sees him from the street and starts shouting at him from the street, just like, hey, Tupac. They're just excited to see him. Well, that alerts the rival gang members behind him to which car they're in. A few minutes pass. Eventually they catch up, pull up next to the car with Tupac in it, and then unload and ultimately shoot and kill Tupac. Now, there's been conspiracies that Suge Knight was actually the one that masterminded the Tupac killing, or that he was the one behind it. But that doesn't really add up because he was in the driver's seat when Tupac got shot. And it's not like, if he did orchestrate it, it's not like he hired Navy SEALs to come in and take Tupac out. So if you're going to be sitting right, it would just not make a lot of sense for him to be like, yeah, kill the guy. The plan is I'm going to sit next to him, and then you pull up and just fire guns into the car that we're both in and hope I don't get hit, and he does. Now, the truth is he did survive, but it doesn't really make sense that would have been him that planned that. If he wanted to kill Tupac, he was really close to him, so there would have been a lot of other opportunities to do that wouldn't require him to be sitting right next to him while he's getting shot. So that doesn't seem likely. Now, the people that believe that this is all farce and that there has to be something more going on, the reasons they cite is that how could the car, the drivers, get away in Vegas on the Strip on the Saturday night of one of the biggest boxing matches at that time in history? I mean, the traffic is packed. Like, it's gridlocked. Like, how did they get away? How did the police not apprehend them? Because, there's a cop that's on the scene with Tupac, within moments after he's shot, and the car gets away still. Either way, according to the investigators, they all knew who it was. It wasn't a mystery. They knew who the killer was, who the shooter was, but no one would talk. No one would because no one wants to be a snitch or whatever. No one wants to be a narc. They want to handle it themselves. So it really wasn't a matter of that they didn't know as much as that in order to actually get a conviction, they would need some level of cooperation from other people involved, and no one else would cooperate. Fast forward a few years after that, Orlando Anderson is the name of the guy who killed Tupac. He gets in some altercation with some guys that owe him money or something, and ends up getting in a gunfight and gets shot and killed. Completely unrelated to Tupac in that situation at all. So, to me, it's incredibly plausible, the story that they've provided, where gang conflict time, someone gets beat up and robbed. Fast forward a few weeks, they see each other, another fight happens, it escalates from there again, and now someone else has got to pay, and then that's how it happened. And it makes way more sense than there being some super sophisticated conspiracy plot that no one has ever been able to uncover, and that no one knows how to get to the bottom of. It doesn't add up nearly as much as just, obviously I'm not from that kind of lifestyle at all and have never been exposed to it personally in that way. But from all the accounts I've read and the stuff I've seen, that's the way it goes. It's people die over moments. A moment happens, you beat that guy up and robbed him of his chain. Well, now it's got to escalate. Oh, you beat that guy up for doing that. Now it's got to escalate. It's just moments. It's all irrelevant moments, but that's that life. That's that world. It's vicious, and it's primal to some extent. And it's terrifying, frankly. But anyway, kind of a tangent there. All of this is to say that DJ Vlad TV is really, really interesting. I mean, by watching those interviews, I was finally able to piece together a story that sounded plausible and made sense, and is corroborated by a lot of different unconnected individuals through those interviews. And yeah, I don't know where else I would have found that, because some of these different individuals on Vlad TV have books and stuff out about it, but it's just one point of view. So I would have always been a little skeptical, but again, kind of getting to hear it from all these different people that, again, are not in cahoots at all. Really made it pretty convincing for me. He also, though, DJ Vlad, he interviews just all sorts of people. He had Nick Cannon on there. Nick Cannon is a very different character than who I thought Nick Cannon was. He recently had Jalen Rose on. Jalen Rose is one of my favorite all-time people to listen to. Jalen Rose is hilarious. And yeah, his Vlad TV interview does not disappoint. Just a lot of really, really interesting conversations that happen on Vlad TV, and kind of interesting insight into the world of hip-hop and that culture, and just the things that are going on there. All right, folks. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you again to all the listeners, and thank you again to Misha for everything that you've done. Remember, you can always check us out on Twitter at the Walkshow Pod, on Instagram at The Walkshow, Facebook at The Walkshow Podcast. And you're always welcome to email me, walker@thewalkshowpodcast.com. Thanks again. Stay up. Have a good week.